Okay, so good afternoon and thank you for your time. The reason we're having this call today is to share and provide some thoughts and advice on important areas to consider when delivering a secure, reliable and robust home networking strategy for the future. So I'll start off with some introductions first. So got Debbie Cottrell. You would have all had an email from Debbie. She heads up our marketing team at ONI, and she'll also be the contact if you've got any questions or answers following this webinar today. So got Steve Coombs. He's a pre-sales consultant. He's been with ONI for 20 plus years and he's got 30 years worth of experience around security, networking. He's been in networking since he left school. So we've got Julie Shipham. So she's been with ONI for 10 years. And previous to that, she was at a major telco for 20 years. So sorry if I'm giving your age away there, Julie. So I'm Duncan Parks. I'm a business development director and I work in the public sector team. So I primarily look after local government, NHS, and do have a big focus on housing associations as well and social housing. So if you have a look on the right hand side of your screen, you'll see there's a panel for questions and answers. So please feel free to ask any questions throughout the session. We will try and answer them through the session if it's appropriate. If not, we'll certainly address them at the end of the session in the Q&A session. So I'll click on today's agenda. So I'm going to go through who is ONI, the current situation and benefits and difficulties of home working, and then I'm going to pass over to Steve. What is the strategy and how can ONI help? And then we've got a section for all of us at the end, which is the Q&A session. So I see there's some non-ONI customers on the call today. So thank you for joining and taking your time out to understand a little bit more about ONI. So I'm just going to give you just a few minutes on who is ONI. So ONI is an IT managed service provider. We're also a Cisco Gold partner, and we own our own Tier 3 data centre. So from that data centre, we deliver colo, private and hybrid cloud solutions, and also as a service type solutions. So, you know, infrastructure as a service, backup as a service, and more importantly for this session, collaboration as a service. So, and I think the most important thing for us is that we've been, you know, in this business for the last 25 years. Well, it's actually 28, so it's more than 25 years. So we have a whole bunch of consultants and engineers, and they work on, you know, from an audit, design, implement, and fully managed. So that could be networking, it could be infrastructures in servers, and it could be DC as well. So as you can see from our experience, I'll give you just one little example. So why we do what we do. So one of my clients down in London, they had a particular problem where they merged and acquired businesses. So they've actually got 3 MPLS networks they were trying to manage, and it was very complex, it was onerous, and you know, the extension of the contracts, etc., etc. So they decided that they wanted to look for a new solution, so whether that was a new big MPLS solution or whatever. So they went to the market and we talked to them about SD-WAN. So, and now they buy all their circuits from vendor neutral providers, so they can get the best connectivity depending on where their location is. And I'll give you an example of why that was important to them. So that they have lots of pop-up sites, so they've got sales offices, and these can be on building sites, and they pop up really quickly. So it's really difficult to get connectivity to some of those sites. So we've provided them with a service where they can use 4G for that, and they can be up and running within hours typically. So it's like an office in a box effectively. So you can see we've got a good split customers from public sector, not-for-profit, and also commercial. So the split between public sector and commercial is about 50-50. So can you put on the next slide, please, Steve? Right, so why are we all working from home? The reality is COVID's made us work from home, but we've had some fantastic news, obviously, over the last day or so that the vaccine's on its way. So hopefully there may be some norm in the future. So how did we do it? We, you improved typically the services that you already had. So typically, myself and most of the people on this call, they're IT professionals, always had the ability to work from home. But then there's various other people that didn't, your contact centre users, and the majority of public sector workers typically work from an office. So the adoption of soft phones has been dramatic. Also video meetings, that's been a dramatic increase. So, and that's, leveraging existing cloud suppliers as well. So it could be WebEx, it could be Microsoft Teams, or it could be Zoom, for instance. So if you want to click onto the next slide, Steve. So, there's been some major benefits by being forced to work from home. I'll give you another couple of examples. So I've got a customer based in the Midlands, and they've got offices throughout the country, even on the Isle of Wight, and they have monthly management meetings. So where 30 or 40 managers will get together, in an office in the Midlands, and the amount of lost productivity and also expense in terms of travel, overnight stays, it was immense, really. So they've gone from having a half-day meeting in the office, which could take 2 days of somebody's time, to do it over video, and they've really embraced it as well. So another client of mine based in London, they sent everybody home to work from home, and they've actually turned off now the building access. So you can only go in a building now if your swipe card's been enabled by your manager, and you need a good reason to do that. So I think it's there to protect the staff as well. But what they've managed to do is they've managed to cease a lease on a building already, and that was a substantial lease as well. And they're looking to reduce, footprint in terms of their real estate, and they're looking, because they're a not-for-profit business as well, so they're looking to actually plough that back into, helping the general public. So, so I'm just going to put a poll on the right-hand side. I'd be really interested to understand what your plans are moving forward. In terms of whether you're going to carry on with the working from home, give your customers the choice, or don't have a clear strategy yet. So let me just open the poll. It's available for 3 minutes. You can literally just, click on it, and it'll just take a few seconds. Can you see this poll, Steve? Brilliant, thank you. So I'm just going to pass over to Steve now and put myself on mute.
Okay, thanks, Duncan. So while you're having a little look at that poll, I just wanted to talk about the long-term challenges. As Duncan mentioned earlier, we're going to see, hopefully we're going to see a change where some people are going to go back to work. But I think it's very obvious that a lot of companies have found it very advantageous to work from home. There are some issues, and some of this has got to do with the way that we've actually found ourselves in this situation, and some of it is to do with how we are going to carry on with this. So critical workers, we've now found that we can get critical work done from home. Your boards, your execs, your contact center agents, your knowledge specialists, your switchboard operators, they can all function from home, and that can have great advantage in some cases. I know that one of our customers has seen an improvement in their contact center productivity of 30% improvement, which is quite amazing. So there's a lot to be said for embracing it and keeping it, but we do have these issues, and like I said, this is ultimately down to the infrastructure we've got in place already. One of the big issues we have is I'm at home, I'm working on a consumer circuit. Now that's fine, if it goes down, how long is it actually going to take to fix? We know we have SLAs, but they're not real. They're pretty much all best fixed. So you could quite easily lose someone who's meant to be working from home for a week. That is an issue. We also have issues where everyone comes home and then gets on their Xbox at 4 o'clock after school, and I see my video start to break up a little bit, and that's not going to be great if I'm attending a board meeting. Historically, where we had our business continuity connectivity, you would send someone home, they would VPN back into the office or the data center, and then from there they would connect to whatever applications they needed to connect to. Now, an awful lot of those applications are actually in the cloud, so you'd be going back out of the firewalls onto those particular services. And again, you've now increased your throughput through your pipes. You also have this problem where things like real-time packets for video and voice don't necessarily like that additional hop. And again, we've had customers who've had problems, particularly running video through that scenario. So perhaps there's a better way of doing it. Visibility and support. Visibility is really important, because all of a sudden I've gone from an enclosed, controlled environment in my office. I've now got all these endpoints on pieces of connectivity that I haven't got control over, and I've got someone complaining of poor service. I've got somebody who can't work, and I have no way of knowing what's going on. I have no way of even starting to investigate it. I only can control what I have in my domain. And that's also part of the security story. Is historically you dealt with perimeter security. That perimeter has changed. Your domain has already suddenly gone out into all these different people's houses. You've got loads of perimeters everywhere, not just where the internet comes into your office. Security. It's one of the banes of our lives. We've got to get it right, but unfortunately everybody, it's a moving target. There's more attacks are up, ransomware are up. Everyone's trying to come up with different ways to attack your business. Now, security can never be 100% perfect, and we've got our compliance we need to attain. So as many layers as possible, and ultimately you look at the cost of these things. The cost of a breach is far worse than the cost of the security we're looking to put in here. Now, what I would like to know is, have you looked at any of these things? What's your strategy for the future? I'm just going to, I know we've done that poll there. Duncan, perhaps if you could put my poll up. What I would like you to do is, whilst I'm going through these different sections, you've got 10 minutes to answer this poll, so there's no hurry. Whilst I'm going through each of these sections, if you think, yes, that does apply to me, that is something I need to look at, then please tick that in the poll, and we can review this afterwards when we get to the Q&A. So I'm just going to go through these 6 boxes, and this is, by all means, it's not everything, and you may have other things that you want to discuss with us, but this is a good starter for 10 as to what we're looking at. First off, I wanted to talk about multi-factor authentication. So multi-factor authentication is, you've got who am I, I've got my username, I've got my password, and I need some other form. So I've got my mobile phone with an application on it, and that application confirms that I am who I am, trying to get into that service. Now, this has become probably quite obvious, as I'm sure you're aware that things like usernames and passwords seem to be trickling out into the public domain, and this is another attack vector. If you've got this additional piece of cover, there's no way that they can get in. They might know your password, but they can't get any further. So multi-factor authentication is becoming very, very interesting. Cloud firewalling. So historically, I've got my firewalls in my data center. If I've got a cloud firewall, I can point all my endpoints to it, and it doesn't matter if they're VPNing back to me or not. They can all go via this cloud firewall, and that cloud firewall can stop that device connecting to anything untoward. So this is quite useful if you've got a piece of malware on that device and it might be doing a call home. It can stop that. In addition to that, because everything is going through this cloud firewall, you've got visibility. So that was something I mentioned earlier. Let's start seeing what that particular user is going through to. When he keeps complaining about the fact his video is bombing out, you find out that he's downloading files at the same time. You can see what each users are doing, and you can also filter what a user is capable of doing, what each endpoint is able to do. Duncan mentioned SD-WAN earlier. SD-WAN is very useful at taking lots of disparate circuits running over the internet and making them look like a wide area network and giving you that kind of control. It can still let you get your endpoints connect out to the public services directly. It can create the VPNs back into your applications that you're hosting. You can control traffic. You can decide how that traffic is serviced. You can also add these with 4G options. You can extend your corporate infrastructure into the home by giving them ports that can be their desk phone, could be their printer, could be a wireless access point. And you can control the security policies. Again, your perimeter, you're creating that security perimeter, and you're taking that perimeter right into the home and able to look at the security policies centrally and control them. I mentioned earlier that we're on consumer grade circuits. It's become apparent that where you've got your critical workers, you need maybe something a bit better than that. There is business grade broadband now being offered. You've got SLAs rather than best endeavors for the fixes. You've got 4G backup options that could even go in first, so you can actually get one of these things up and running even before the piece of wire has been run into the property. There are even Ethernet offerings for residential properties now, so you can get Ethernet-like full duplex symmetrical services into the home and with even better guarantees. So these really are sort of business, bringing the business services into your home offices, and that may be very critical. And don't forget that, you know, there's, what are you gaining? You no longer have people spending money doing things like traveling to offices. You don't necessarily have the cost of the office anymore, so you do have to offset this against where your costs are. Endpoint security, anti-malware, having a day zero detection on those endpoints. So it's not just antivirus. It's not going to just say, okay, I'm looking for a signature in a file. It actually sees your endpoint doing something that it shouldn't do, trying to connect to something that it shouldn't connect to, mark it as suspicious, and block it. And even to the point that if something's happened that it's not quite seen before, it can go off into a big pot. And when they suddenly say, actually, yeah, this really is something that we need to block, it can retrospectively advise you that device has been infected, so you can remediate it. And all these things happen automatically. And I'll mention how this all gets automatically updated in a moment, another slide. And finally, where everyone is taking their applications and putting them to the cloud, going into AWS, they're going into Azure, going into our data centers, you want to look at the virtual appliances, the virtual security appliances in particular, that you can deploy in those environments in such a way that you are familiar with them. So you can get firewalls, you can get SD-WAN units that you can put into your virtual deployment in a cloud, and it looks the same. You can configure it the same. You can put out the same security policies, and you don't have a re-education piece going on. And it brings this in again to your control domain without you having to learn another set of different products. So I see we've got a bit of time left on the poll. Has everybody finished, do you think? Has it been a little bit inactive for a while, Duncan?
Yeah, if you haven't voted yet, if you could vote now, that would be great. And then we can concentrate on the areas that are of particular interest to you.
Okay. I think if you close it, I think it gives everyone 30 seconds just to finish off anyway. So.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. So is that just closing now, Duncan? I'd just like to see what the response is.
Yeah, we've got 10 seconds. So what I can say, Steve, is that authentication and endpoint security is particularly high.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm not surprised, because it really does make a lot of sense, and I totally get that. So I'll tell you what I'll do is I will just talk a little bit about cloud, as I was just talking about cloud. We are a I can't read my own slide because I've got the poll in the way now. Right, we are a Microsoft Cloud Solutions partner, as well as being a Cisco Gold partner, and we do run our own data centers. So we are in a very good situation to give you an assessment on your cloud services and your Microsoft licensing assessment for your cloud. So if you want us to talk to you about that, then please do. Connectivity, we can provide multi-carrier services, and there are offers about there. So I mentioned about Ethernet into the home. There's some very competitive solutions out there that can get you these SLA get-backed circuits into the home to give you your key workers the services they require. Right, onto the multi-factor authentication. We have Cisco Secure Access, which is formerly known as Duo. Cisco are going through a bit of a rebrand at the moment, hence the names in brackets is where they were historically. This is multi-factor authentication. Comes down to your phone. We can deploy this for you. You can just have a little trial of maybe 10 devices. Might you want to deploy that in IT? It can be linked into your environment, and only the people who actually need to trial it will actually get prompted for it. Everyone else will just get passed through normally. So it doesn't have to be evasive in disrupting how things are going. That's for multi-factor. For endpoints, we've got the secure endpoint, or AMP as it used to be known, AMP for endpoints. So this is your day zero attack that you install on those devices. You then have a way of setting policies. You then have it's got antivirus. It's going to control and stop that device doing what it shouldn't be doing. In fact, it even ties into Duo. So were I to get an infection on my endpoint, and I then tried to connect to one of my Duo protected environments, the two talk together. The endpoint security tells Duo of your status. So it is now doing what they call this posturing, and you can decide whether or not you want to let that device through. So you can actually restrict these devices from getting back onto your corporate environment. The third one in this piece here is Umbrella, which is the firewall in the cloud. So I could point my endpoints all to this firewall in the cloud. It means I've got visibility. I can see who is connecting to what, and if there's anything like where if I was to get a phishing attack and I was to try and connect out to a domain that I shouldn't be connecting to, you can block it there. So and you are able to apply policies, and you're able to see what's going on. So very useful. We can also help you with a Meraki proof of concept. If you want to look at SD-WAN technology, we can help you roll out a little proof of concept, and so you can see how it works. And also the Meraki products also tie into things like AMP and Umbrella and Duo. So they do all sort of link together. What O and I would like to do is help you with these trials, because there are elements of these trials where you need additional resource. You might need to run up a virtual machine for a connector, or in case of Duo, they have a thing called a Duo Access Gateway to help tie in your Active Directory to your logins and so on. So actually, I've just skipped a point. I forgot to mention this. I'll mention this here. All of these products have got these backroom boys working for them. Talos is Cisco's intelligence, threat intelligence, and they've got these analysts looking at all the information that is coming in from all their products. If they are identifying a threat, they will then update all of these products automatically. So that really is the brains, and that's working for you. And they are probably the largest threat intelligence agency outside a government. what we would like to do is help you with these trials, and the way we want to do that is by offering you a ONI secure container. So this is running in our data center, running on our virtual infrastructure that will allow you to spin up these little pieces of the jigsaw that will go to make the solution. We'll help you set it up, we'll help you integrate it with your infrastructure, we will then demonstrate it to you so you can prove the value, so you can take it and see how it goes and see how it works for you. If you should then decide, yes, I want to keep this, and you might want to move that back into your own infrastructure, or we can move this secure container into becoming a service that we can provide to you. So it becomes a managed service, and you can then keep expanding and roll it out to the rest of your business. When you have, we will also put in this dashboard. So you've got those different products. They can all report into this one pane of glass, so you can see what's going on. You can see what threats are happening. And indeed, this dashboard can actually link into other applications that you may have, as the APIs for this dashboard are out there. And there's several integrations that already have been done. So, and it doesn't have to just be security. It will actually link into other applications as well. So that's part of the ONI secure container offer. So I think what I'd like to know, if we had any questions there, Duncan, is there anything I need to cover further?
We've got a number of questions, but I thought I'd just share the poll with you in terms of the first poll was what people are likely to do in the future, and a majority of people are saying that they're going to give their staff the choice or continue working from home. So clearly, so that's quite interesting in terms of the plans for people in the future. So yeah, we've got some questions, Steve. So just bear with me 1 second, and I'll. There's a couple for you, Julie, actually, on connectivity. So I don't know if you want to pick those up first.
Yes, see those. Obviously, a key thing is connectivity for people working from home. From what we've some questions. So the first question I've got is: will a business grade internet service be a lot more expensive than a standard home broadband service? Yes, there could be a small increase in cost, but choosing sort of home broadband could turn out to be false economy in some cases, because it might not even be suitable for business use, depending on what's being run across it anyway. And business grade internet services are actually given priority over residential. So your experience is going to be a lot faster, it's going to be a more reliable service. So from that perspective, and as Steve alluded to earlier, that providers now recognise that more and more people are going to be working from home and they need something, a little bit more effective for them. So for example, as Steve mentioned, BT have launched a home worker package based on Ethernet. So, where broadband services, FTTC, ADSL's not enough, they brought out a specific solution. So it's got synchronous bandwidth, business grade hubs, or Cisco router, if that's your preference. And the important thing, it comes with a business grade SLA. So yes, it's costing a little bit more, but it's what you're getting for that money. Having said that, they are offering that at half price as well at the moment. So it's a good time to look at something like that. The other thing is that 4G backup is also included in a lot of these services, so it may seem a little more expensive, but you've got the 4G, you've got higher availability, and therefore, you've got less loss of business, your productivity is higher if your people aren't actually offline. Also, the cost of a standard business broadband in the last 12 months has really come down. And we can get bespoke pricing for that. We've recently put some good deals together for our customers that are looking to, launch it out to their home workers. So we can look at, how we can make that cost effective. So, yes, there will be an increase. Yes, you do get more, but it's not necessarily as high as you would have, sort of thought, or if you'd looked at it previously. So hopefully that answers that one. I've got another question, and that is: will a business grade service be more reliable than home broadband? In our experience, then yes, business grade broadbands do tend to be more reliable, but more importantly, they have a faster repair time on them. So if you do get a fault, it's great, but you want that fault to be repaired as quick as possible. So that can be as little as 5 hours with the Ethernet services. So it's very much in line the services that you would have at your office, because Ethernet services tend to be 5-6 hours. So you could have a 5-hour Ethernet, and the business broadband. So if you went for the ADSL FTTC, that will have a 24-hour fix on it. If you compare that to a consumer broadband, the good ones there tend to be end of next working day repair. But again, as Steve mentioned earlier, that's best endeavours. So there's no guarantees that you're going to get that up. If you're without your service for a week potentially, what does that mean to your business? Depends on the role of the person who's working from home. And the other thing is then you've got the 4G backup that you can add for that. So, that's giving you further availability while the service is down as well. So hopefully that covers that one. I've got a couple more. Duncan, do you want me to go through them all?
I can do that. I was asking because we've had just one pop-up around 4G and about, does that cost extra and is there any data use on that? Or, do you pay for the data you use on that? Okay,
it depends how you're utilising 4G. So if you're using 4G as a backup to an FTTC or an ADSL, for example, as part of a package, then no, because that's only working whilst your circuit is down. So that's, part of it. You're not going to get charged usage for that. If you're using 4G as a live connection, so as you can with an SD-WAN, you can sort of put multiple types of connections or multiple ADSL. So if you're using it as a live connection, then yes, potentially there will be usage charges, but it's a SIM card. So it's a little bit like, on your mobile, if you use that and you want to get a pooled usage agreement, if you've got an agreement already with your mobile provider, you want to use the data you've got with that. So it depends how you're using it, how you expect to use it. And, there's options there as, with all mobiles, really.
Excellent, thanks, Steve. I've got a couple of questions I think Steve could probably answer. So the questions, many of our employees are not good with IT, and if they use their own broadband, how can we offer them a service so we help set up and manage their routers to provide some quality of service without compromising their own home service?
Right, okay. There's two answers to this. One is, wouldn't it be nice if we could put a second circuit in there that you could just solely use for business? Realise that's not always practical and it may not be cost effective. What you can do with an existing service is you could put in a little SD-WAN device on the end of that circuit. It will just sit on the end of whatever equipment they've got there already. And you can then let everyone use that, but you can control it. And so all they've got to do is plug it in for you. And you can then see what they're doing, and you can, I appreciate what you're saying about the quality of service. Ultimately, it's the contention within the house. I'm on a video call whilst my son's applying to play Fortnite. I can make sure that my video call takes priority over his Fortnite activity. So a little SD-WAN device works as treatment. Like I said, extends that visibility into the home.
Great stuff. Another one for you, Steve. What do you believe is the biggest security risk to the business today?
That's a very good question. And it does really depend on the business, but one of the biggest attack vectors is still phishing. Somehow or other, someone gets in and they send you an email, and you click on the email, and it's going to take you somewhere where you shouldn't be going. This is where products like your endpoint security and your cloud firewall can stop that type of activity by barring that destination, by barring those domains. It will be investigated by Talos, and they will be marking these environments as unsafe and not letting your device connect and potentially lose information.
Excellent. On that note, we've got another one here. It says, how long do changes to cloud firewalls take to come into effect?
Typically they're instantaneous, but it does depend on the product, and you might want to time window them as well. But yeah, so if you find out, for example, you want to set a policy on a firewall where I want to bar that domain, yeah, instantaneous.
Excellent. Okay, I've got another one. I don't know if this is for you, Julie, or whether it's for you, Steve. So we've got a number of people in the business who live in areas with poor broadband service. what options do we have for them?
You want me to take that one, Steve?
You're probably going to say the same thing, Julie, so by all means.
Yeah, okay. So it's possible to bond multiple broadband or Ethernet services together, and that's one of the big benefits of an SD-WAN. So, you know, you can bond that, you can increase the available bandwidth. I guess if you were to bond together multiple broadbands, then you can do that, but if they're from the same exchange, you're not getting that availability, because if the exchange goes down, broadband are both there. So that's where you could sort of bond a broadband and a 4G and get both the bandwidths, as we were talking about in one of the previous questions. You know, you can use that combination of those two in a live environment. So that gives you more bandwidth to utilise, but also, you know, higher availability whilst you're sort of doing that as well. Anything to add to that, Steve?
Only that obviously there's a lot of fibre that's being rolled out at the moment. There's lots of projects to get more fibre in the ground. But ultimately, if your user lives in the middle of a field, it can be quite tricky, and you are sort of falling back on things like 4G services to try and get them a service.
Yeah, I've got just one thing to add to that, because one of my clients uses a building management system where they've got a lot of remote locations, and they typically use 4G in the basement. Well, we've got a product from Meraki now that's a gateway, so the actual 4G transmitter device you can put, you know, at the top of your house or at the top of a building to get a, you know, an improved signal as well. So it's
good point.
Very, very useful for them. So I think that's pretty much covered all the questions, unless you've spotted anything else, Julie. I think that's covered all the questions. So I don't know if you want to click onto the next slide. So going back to the slide that going back to the slide that Steve mentioned earlier in terms of how we can help you. So we're offering, you know, for people that have joined the call today, and if you've also watched it on a video playback as well, we're offering some free trials. Now, these trials will get you up and running, and you can try the products. And you know, we typically charge, depending on what it is, you know, between £2,000 and £5,000 for these trials. So, you know, you'll get really good engineering resource to assist you with this. So, you know, so the best thing to do is if you contact Debbie Cottrell, who you've got the email from anyway. So she'll be sending out an email anyway, thanking you for attending. So if you've got any questions about these trials, or you'd like to take up a free trial, or you've got an immediate requirement you want to talk to us about, then drop Debbie a quick email, and she will get back to you and get the appropriate person to talk to you. So I guess I just wanted to thank everybody for joining the call today. So if there's anything else from the panel, anything from you, Julie or Steve?
Yeah, we have actually got another question. Sorry, I know we were finishing, but Chris just popped a question which I think we can answer fairly quickly. So Chris has asked, providing a business broadband contract in people's homes is fine in principle, but what happens when they leave? Presumably be hit with early termination charges, and if they terminated their home broadband, they'd be without it. Yeah, it's a good question. A lot of broadband services now can actually be provided on a 1-month contract anyway. When we're looking at business rather than sort of residential consumer type, you can get more flexible contracts as well. So if you actually move into a new site, then the contract can actually move with the service to the new site. I would think if somebody's moving premises, but there are sort of solutions to that and ways around that within the contracts. We do sort of look for that flexibility in contracts now. So it's not necessarily a major issue. Hopefully that answers the question, Chris, but we can pick that up afterwards as well if need be. Sorry, I know we were finishing, but I just thought we'd answer that one.
No, that's fine, Julie. So yeah, if anybody thinks of a question, whether they're watching it today or whether they're watching it on a video playback, then please get in touch with Debbie and she'll get an appropriate person to contact you. So I just wanted to thank you all for joining the call today. I hope it's been of use to you. Thanks very much.